Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we are taking a closer look at an interesting comparison that has attracted attention among currency followers around the world. The discussion compares the Vietnamese dong, commonly known as the VND, with the Iraqi dinar, or IQD. Although these two currencies belong to countries with very different political systems, economic structures, and monetary policies, they are often discussed together by people interested in global currencies. Understanding why these currencies behave differently requires looking beyond simple exchange rates and examining the economic strategies that each nation has chosen over the years. The comparison begins with a historical observation. Both Iraq and Vietnam experienced military conflicts involving the United States. While that historical connection may seem significant, what truly shapes a country's currency today is not simply its past conflicts, but the economic policies adopted after those conflicts ended. The long-term direction of fiscal policy, central banking decisions, institutional reforms, foreign investment, and economic diversification all influence how a nation's currency performs over time. Vietnam chose a development model focused heavily on export-led growth. The country gradually opened its economy to international investment while maintaining significant government oversight through its communist political system. Rather than allowing market forces alone to determine every aspect of economic activity, Vietnamese authorities have maintained substantial influence over banking, monetary policy, and exchange rate management. This has created an economic model that combines centralized political control with strong participation in global trade. For currency followers, one of the most important characteristics of Vietnam's monetary policy is that authorities have generally preferred maintaining a relatively competitive exchange rate. A weaker domestic currency can make exported goods less expensive for international buyers, increasing demand for manufactured products produced inside Vietnam. Since exports represent a major engine of Vietnam's economic expansion, exchange rate policy has often been aligned with broader economic development goals. This does not necessarily mean that a weaker currency reflects economic weakness. In many cases, governments deliberately manage exchange rates to support employment, manufacturing competitiveness, and foreign trade. Vietnam has consistently demonstrated that exchange rate management can be part of a broader long-term economic strategy rather than simply a reaction to market pressures. Over the past several decades, Vietnam has transformed itself into one of Asia's fastest-growing manufacturing centers. International companies have invested billions of dollars in factories producing electronics, clothing, furniture, machinery, and numerous consumer products. Global supply chains increasingly include Vietnam as manufacturers diversify production across Asia. This steady flow of foreign direct investment has contributed to rising incomes, expanding industrial capacity, and growing exports. Despite this impressive economic growth, Vietnamese authorities have generally avoided allowing their currency to appreciate dramatically. Many observers believe this reflects a strategic decision to preserve export competitiveness, rather than pursue a stronger exchange rate that could reduce the attractiveness of Vietnamese goods in international markets. For investors who closely monitor currencies, this highlights an important lesson. A rapidly growing economy does not automatically produce a dramatically stronger currency. Governments often balance multiple objectives simultaneously, including inflation control, export competitiveness, employment, foreign investment, and financial stability. Exchange rate decisions therefore reflect a complex policy framework rather than a single economic indicator. Vietnam's tourism industry also illustrates another interesting aspect of its economic model. International visitors frequently use US dollars in certain transactions, particularly within tourism-related activities. While the Vietnamese dong remains the official national currency, the presence of international currencies in tourism can facilitate travel and commercial activity involving foreign visitors. This reflects the increasingly global nature of modern economies, where multiple currencies may play practical roles alongside domestic legal tender. Another notable feature of Vietnam's economy is its ability to attract sustained foreign investment. Investors generally seek countries offering political stability, predictable regulations, expanding infrastructure, competitive labor costs, and growing consumer markets. Vietnam has spent many years strengthening these areas, helping establish itself as an attractive destination for multinational corporations looking to expand manufacturing operations. This consistent investment contributes to economic growth without necessarily requiring dramatic currency appreciation. Once again, this demonstrates that exchange rate levels alone do not tell the complete story about economic performance. Turning to Iraq, the situation differs significantly. Iraq possesses one of the world's largest proven oil reserves, making energy exports the foundation of government revenue and foreign exchange earnings. Unlike Vietnam's highly diversified export manufacturing sector, Iraq's economy remains heavily dependent on petroleum exports. This concentration creates both opportunities and challenges for policymakers. Oil revenues provide Iraq with significant financial resources during periods of favorable energy prices. However, reliance on a single major export commodity also exposes the economy to fluctuations in global oil markets. When oil prices decline, government revenues can come under pressure, affecting fiscal planning and broader economic activity. For the Iraqi dinar, this means that energy markets, fiscal policy, and monetary stability remain closely interconnected. The strength and stability of public finances influence investor confidence, foreign reserves, and the Central Bank of Iraq's ability to maintain monetary stability. The Central Bank of Iraq continues to emphasize financial stability, inflation management, and confidence in the banking system. These objectives remain essential, regardless of discussions surrounding future currency expectations. Stable monetary policy helps create an environment where businesses can invest, consumers can plan, and financial institutions can operate with greater confidence. Currency followers sometimes focus primarily on exchange rate speculation while overlooking these broader economic foundations. In reality, sustainable currency performance depends on macroeconomic stability, institutional credibility, banking reforms, fiscal discipline, and diversified economic growth. These factors often develop gradually over many years rather than through sudden changes. Comparing Iraq with Vietnam therefore requires recognizing that each country faces unique economic realities. Vietnam's manufacturing-driven export economy naturally leads policymakers toward one set of exchange rate priorities. Iraq's resource-based economy presents different opportunities and different policy considerations. One important similarity between both countries is that economic reforms require patience. Neither Vietnam's industrial transformation nor Iraq's financial modernization occurred overnight. Large-scale economic development involves infrastructure investment, regulatory improvements, banking modernization, educational advancement, technological adoption, and private sector expansion. For Iraqi Dinar followers, understanding these long-term processes may provide more meaningful insights than concentrating exclusively on short-term market speculation. Sustainable economic development often progresses through incremental improvements rather than dramatic overnight events. Vietnam's experience also demonstrates how government policy can shape economic outcomes over extended periods. Although governed under a communist political framework, Vietnam has actively embraced international trade, encouraged foreign investment, expanded manufacturing, and integrated into global supply chains. This combination has produced substantial economic growth while maintaining considerable government oversight of monetary policy. The statement that Vietnam grows money like a capitalist reflects the observation that the country has successfully participated in global market economics despite maintaining a socialist political system. International businesses operate throughout Vietnam, exports continue expanding, and economic productivity has increased significantly over recent decades. However, it is important not to oversimplify this model. Economic success depends on numerous interconnected factors, including education, infrastructure, labor productivity, legal reforms, transportation networks, international trade agreements, and effective public administration. Exchange rate management represents only one component within a much larger economic framework. For Iraq, ongoing efforts to strengthen the banking sector remain especially significant. Modern payment systems, electronic banking, anti-money laundering measures, financial transparency, and improved regulatory oversight contribute to a healthier financial environment. These reforms can strengthen confidence among domestic businesses and international investors alike. As Iraq continues pursuing economic diversification beyond oil, policymakers frequently discuss expanding agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, logistics, renewable energy, and private sector development. Diversification may gradually reduce dependence on petroleum revenues, while creating additional employment opportunities across multiple industries. This broader economic expansion could eventually contribute to stronger long-term economic resilience. However, diversification is typically measured over years rather than months. Building competitive industries requires sustained investment, infrastructure development, skilled labor, and favorable business conditions. Courtesy observers should therefore view Iraq's economic progress through a comprehensive lens rather than focusing exclusively on exchange rate discussions. Strong institutions, transparent governance, fiscal responsibility, and productive investment often create the foundation for long-term monetary stability. Another important distinction involves market perception. Vietnam's currency generally receives relatively limited attention from international retail currency enthusiasts compared with the Iraqi dinar. One reason is that Vietnamese monetary authorities have consistently communicated their preference for maintaining exchange rate stability in support of export competitiveness. As a result, expectations surrounding dramatic currency movements remain relatively limited. The Iraqi dinar, by contrast, has attracted significant discussion across online communities for many years. This attention has produced a wide range of opinions, forecasts, and interpretations regarding Iraq's economic future. While interest remains high, it is important to distinguish between verified economic developments and unsupported speculation. Responsible analysis should always rely on official policy announcements, economic indicators, central bank communications, government reforms, international financial assessments, and measurable economic data. Avoiding exaggerated claims helps viewers make better informed decisions while maintaining realistic expectations. In the short term, Iraqi dinar followers should continue monitoring developments involving banking reforms, fiscal policy, oil market conditions, inflation trends, private sector growth, foreign investment, and central bank initiatives. These areas provide valuable insight into Iraq's evolving economic landscape. International energy markets also remain important because oil exports continue generating a substantial share of Iraq's national income. Stable energy demand and responsible fiscal management can support macroeconomic stability, while diversification efforts may strengthen resilience over time. In the longer term, successful implementation of economic reforms could enhance Iraq's investment climate. Improvements in infrastructure, digital banking, regulatory transparency, commercial law, and private enterprise may encourage broader economic activity. These developments can gradually strengthen the overall economy, even if exchange rate changes occur slowly and cautiously. Vietnam offers one example of how sustained policy consistency can transform an economy across several decades. Iraq's future will ultimately depend on its own unique economic path, institutional reforms, demographic trends, investment climate, and policy decisions. Although comparisons between countries can provide useful lessons, every nation's circumstances remain distinct. Economic development is rarely linear. Countries experience periods of rapid growth, slower expansion, external shocks, and policy adjustments. Successful long-term planning requires adaptability as global conditions evolve. Inflation pressures, geopolitical developments, commodity prices, technological innovation, and international trade patterns all influence national economic performance. For viewers interested in the Iraqi dinar, maintaining a balanced perspective remains essential. Currency values reflect numerous interconnected variables rather than a single event or announcement. Patience, careful analysis, and reliance on credible information sources often provide a stronger foundation than reacting to rumors or unverified claims. The comparison between Vietnam and Iraq also reminds us that different policy choices can produce different economic outcomes. Vietnam prioritized manufacturing exports and competitive pricing in global markets. Iraq continues working toward broader economic diversification while leveraging its substantial natural resources. Both approaches involve trade-offs shaped by national priorities and economic circumstances. Ultimately, The most meaningful indicators for Iraqi dinar followers include continued banking modernization, improvements in financial transparency, responsible fiscal management, investment in productive sectors, expanding private enterprise, and sustained economic reforms. These structural developments contribute to stronger economic fundamentals over time. It is equally important to recognize that governments often prioritize economic stability over rapid currency appreciation. Stable inflation, healthy banking systems, predictable monetary policy, and sustainable growth frequently receive greater emphasis than dramatic exchange rate movements. This principle applies not only to Iraq and Vietnam, but to many economies around the world. As global financial conditions continue evolving, Iraq's economic progress will likely remain influenced by domestic reforms as well as international developments. Monitoring official announcements from Iraqi institutions, economic statistics, and credible financial organizations can help viewers stay informed without relying on speculation. The discussion comparing the Vietnamese dong and the Iraqi dinar, therefore, serves as an opportunity to better understand how economic policy shapes currency behavior, rather than assuming that every growing economy will pursue the same monetary strategy. This comparison highlights the importance of examining each country's specific objectives, institutional framework, and development priorities. For Iraqi dinar followers, the key takeaway is that long-term currency confidence grows alongside strong economic fundamentals. Banking reforms, diversified growth, fiscal discipline, institutional credibility, and productive investment collectively create the conditions that support a stable financial system. While every country's journey differs, sustainable progress is generally built through consistent policy implementation over many years. Thank you for watching today's update. If you appreciate responsible, factual, and balanced coverage of Iraqi dinar developments and Iraq's economy, please subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss future updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice, and viewers should conduct their own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.